headquarters for OceanWise, which is a global not-for-profit conservation organization, which I'm very lucky to work for. And has anyone here traveled to Vancouver before? I know that most of us probably live in a very far away place, so please in the chat, let me know where you're from today. I want to get to know you as much as I want you to get to know me. It sounds like there's some friends from Yukon. Some of you have been to Vancouver before. That's amazing. None of it. Amazing. Some folks from BC as well. Amazing. We'll keep sending those in so I can understand where everyone's from today. But if you haven't been to Vancouver or the Vancouver Aquarium before, the aquarium is actually in Stanley Park, right near downtown Vancouver, and it's on the traditional unceded territory of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. And we're very, very lucky to be able to be here on their land and continue teaching about the wonderful nature that is around us and how we can help protect it. So today, we're going to talk about a creature that doesn't actually live here in British Columbia, except right here at the Vancouver Aquarium. Amazing. It looks like we have friends from all over. Amazing. Even some international friends. I love it. Well, as we go through the program, please let us know in the chat any experiences that you have where you live that connect to what we're talking about today. But I think you already know who we're going to talk about today. So in the chat, can you describe what you think a penguin looks like? What colors would it be? Does it have a shape to it? Yeah, we're going to talk about some penguins. Amazing. And they've got black and white. Oh, good idea, Max. They've got kind of an oval shape to them. That's right. Amazing. Looks like everyone knows what a penguin looks like. That is great. Now, Charlotte even mentions, they've got actually white on their tummies. Whereas on their back, what color is it? Oh, yeah, some of them can have some other colors, like maybe some blues or pinks. Yeah, and they've got that black back. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. But first, I would like to ask you a few questions about these wonderful animals. So these are a true or false question. So if you think it's correct or not. So I'm going to ask you these questions and you can write maybe T for true or F for false. Oh, cool. It sounds like some of our friends were here at the Vancouver Aquarium for our opening of our penguin exhibit. We have some African penguins here. We'll talk about some of the places we can find them in just a minute. But my first question for you is, are penguins a bird? If you think of the birds you might see flying around your hometown, what do we think? We've got mostly trues, some falses. You know what? Even though penguins can't fly, they are still actually a bird. If you think about it, they still have those feathers all over their body, just like our bird friends near your home. My second question is, there are penguins in the North Pole. So if you were to go up to the Arctic, or if you are in the Arctic already right now, are there penguins there? I see a few trues, some falses. We're not totally sure about this one, but You know what? Some of those holiday movies that show you polar bears with penguins, what would happen if you had those two animals together? I think the polar bear is going to try and eat those penguins. So luckily for penguins, they actually do not live in the Arctic. So that one was false. We find penguins almost exclusively in the southern hemisphere, so the bottom half of the planet. So far away from us here in Canada or elsewhere in North America. Now, there is one species of penguin that does live just over the equator, so the band that goes around the middle of the planet, and that's the Galapagos penguin. So sometimes they are on just the north side of that equator. So technically, there are some penguin friends up here in the northern hemisphere. That's right, Rael. Our penguins are mostly gonna live down south, and we do have quite a few at the South Pole or Antarctica. Yeah, there are actually 5 species that we can find there, but there's actually only 2 that only live on Antarctica. So there are many others of the 18 species of penguins we find in other slightly warmer places. Very cool. Now, it sounds like some of you live farther north than I do. Is it warm or cold right now where you are? Let me know in the chat, is it warm or cold? Maybe if you know what the temperature is out today. I know that today it's sunny, but it feels a little bit chilly. I would still want a small jacket. It sounds like it's warm in some places, cold in others, maybe even cold and warm at the same time. Maybe cold in the shade and warm when the sun's on you. Amazing. Now, if you were a penguin living, say, on Antarctica, how would you stay warm? If you were to go on a venture, or if you live somewhere that gets cold in the winter, how do you stay warm? You're gonna wear a big jacket. You could run around for some exercise. Oh, yeah, definitely put that hat and those mittens on. Great idea to stay nice and toasty warm. Maybe in an igloo or some form of house, some shelter to keep us protected from the cold. And it looks like some of you have already mentioned how those penguins can stay warm. They have, what is it that they ruffle all over their body, just like the birds outside your home? Those feathers, that is right. That is right. Now, I'm going to switch over to my PowerPoint here in a moment. So just bear with me where I try and share that with you. So if we were in an icy climate such as Antarctica, we would need those feathers to stay warm as a penguin. Pretty cool, huh? If you live somewhere north, have you ever seen ice breaking up like that before? I've always wanted to. It's quite beautiful. And if you have those feathers, you can see those fluffy penguins there. Some of them look kind of silly. What else are they doing to stay warm? Are they getting up cozy on the couch with each other, like you might with your family to stay warm? That's right, Max. They're gonna huddle together. Yeah, they're gonna stay nice and close and cuddle up to keep warm with each other. Many, many penguins in cold environments will do this. Amazing. Now, I know that some of our questions at the beginning had to do with what these animals eat. And as you're trying to stay warm in the cold Arctic, you might need to shiver. Shiver a little bit. If you can at home, you can shiver with me and get ready to warm up to go find some food. We need food to give us the energy to stay warm, to shiver more. Penguins can shiver just like us. And it looks like some of you have guessed penguins would like to eat fish. Do you think there are any other animals or food that penguins might want to eat? Ah, that's right, Gregory, some squid. Amazing. We have lots of animals, including our penguins here at the Vancouver Aquarium, that will eat squid. Oh, Addison, great idea. Some krill, maybe? Yeah. Some of the smaller penguins will definitely eat krill. It's a tasty treat. Oh, Kerrigan, great observation. Penguins have knees just like us. And if you have gone swimming before, you might realize those knees help you with kicking through the water. If we were to go find food like a penguin, are we going to be able to kick, or do we have something else that helps us swim through the water? Ah, that's right. Good job, Addison. They also have those arms. Can you show me your arms, those wings, like a penguin? Yeah, they're kind of like fins. They still are kind of more of wings that help them move around. Now, as we get going, we're going to call those flippers for now. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. Hopefully you can all see me. I want us to go catch as many fish or krill or squid, whatever you as a penguin want to find. We're going to use our flippers and we are going to swim through the water. So if you can swim with me, we're going to flap those flippers and swim through the water. And then, just like some of you mentioned, there might be some seals around trying to eat us. Seals and sea lions, even sharks or whales, can be predators of penguins, so animals that want to eat them. So if you think there's a seal behind you, swim even faster and try and grab your fish. I think it's a nice tasty treat. Great observation, Max. Sharks are apex predators in their environment a lot of the time. Has anyone here heard that word apex predator before? You let me know in the chat if you have. If you haven't, an apex predator is someone who's at the top of their food chain. So they are kind of the head honcho of their environment. Many sharks can be the top hunter, the top predator, but just like quite a few of you have mentioned, there's someone who is above sharks in many ecosystems. That is the apex predator of pretty much the entire ocean. It is actually black and white, just like a penguin. Some of you've got it. An orca whale or a killer whale. They have actually been able to eat sharks, even white sharks. So there are orcas around South Africa that like to eat white sharks there. Amazing. Sounds like you all know so much about the ocean. Amazing. Now, I'm going to have us continue on. I'm going to bring my PowerPoint back for us. I lost my... There we go. Now, we talked about how it's not just the Antarctic that we're going to find these penguins. For a long time, I thought they were just at the South Pole of Antarctica, but we find them all over the world around South America, the Galapagos Islands, as I mentioned before, as well as some other locations too. So you could actually be on a beach in certain countries and see penguins. There are even some that live in Chile and Peru that live in a desert area. Oh, good question. Are all those penguin footprints? I'm not sure, but I would imagine that it's likely human footprints. There's a lot more humans on this planet than penguins. Awesome. So you might find them in warmer climates, although it can still get cold. Even here in Vancouver, I still need to put a jacket on today. So even in these warmer environments, they still rely on those feathers to keep them warm. Oh, Charlotte and Isaiah, good question. So is the movie Surf's Up right? Do penguins actually surf the waves? Great question. They can if they want, and there are animals living in the ocean that love to do that. Penguins can surf those waves back into shore. Lots of dolphins like to do that as well. They have a really good time just like we do. I don't think that you'll find a penguin on a surfboard though. Awesome. Now, there was a question from Max on if we as humans are apex predators. We definitely are in many, many situations. We affect animals all over the planet in a really big way, and we actually eat a lot of animals on this planet. Very cool. Yeah, that's right. We're the top of our food chain in many situations. All right. I'm gonna keep us moving forward here. There we go. So this is one of those areas where they're actually gonna live in the desert. And in some of these areas, these penguins will live on rocky areas. So depending on the penguin, they might prefer ice. Some might prefer a rocky area to raise their young. It can be really pretty where these animals live. And sometimes they actually prefer to be on islands, which are farther away from big predators. Especially since if there's a big predator on land, they cannot fly away, and they're not very fast on land. Do you think that you could waddle like a penguin back and forth? Waddle, 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 waddle. That's right. Yeah, they can hop off of rocks to go and catch fish. Definitely. They would definitely dive off the rocks into the water and go searching for food. Some parents even leave their mate, so maybe the mom will leave the dad for a few weeks at a time to go get food and then return. So they will take turns taking care of their child or their baby. Now, this is actually one of, well, I'm biased, but this is one of my favorite penguins. This is one of the African penguins just like we have here at the Vancouver Aquarium. They're super, super cute, and you can see they're not all black and white. There's another color you might see there. Does anyone see another color on this African penguin? Yeah, they've got kind of a pinky color, almost a red, right on its head, near its eyes. There are even some that'll have big kind of orange or yellow spots on their body as well. Somebody mentioned these are smaller penguins. Yeah, they're probably up to your knee on an adult. So they're much smaller. I find they're a little bit silly here in Vancouver sometimes because it actually gets too cold for them here in Vancouver, and they like to huddle inside in their little shelter area. Super cute. Now, we were talking about how those penguins are on mainly one side of the planet. Do you remember if we said the penguins are on the top or the northern part of the planet, or the southern bottom part of the planet? Does anyone remember? We live in the north, well, at least from what I noticed from everyone talking to us today, most of us live in the northern hemisphere, the top half. But that's right, those penguins mostly are going to be on the bottom half, with just those Galapagos penguins just over the equator. That's right, you all remembered quite a lot. Amazing! Now, you can see right along, hopefully you can see my cursor, but you can see here is the coast of Chile, and we see many different types of penguins along there, especially on some of the islands there. Now, I have a video of our very cute African penguins. I hope that this is visible to you. I don't know about you, but they always make me crack up. They are so funny. Now, great question, Addison. What are the armbands for? So we are really used to looking at people's faces to help tell each of us apart. It's harder for us to tell the penguins apart. So to make it easier, we have given them little armbands or bracelets with different colored beads. And each of the penguins has a different color, so we can tell them apart. Yeah, they all look the same. It's hard to tell them apart. I don't know the names of all of the penguins, but I know that Hope, who is one of the penguins, is quite popular with the public. She does do walks around the aquarium from time to time and is constantly learning more about humans at our penguin encounters. Amazing. I'll play it one more time.
Charlotte and Isaiah want to know if they like being with people, or the people do they like having people around? Because we're hearing that some of the animals are missing their people in the zoos.
That's a great question. You know what? I think that they really do. I have checked on them on our live cam. So we have cameras that are showing live what the animals are doing for the penguins, the sea otters, and our jellyfish. And I haven't seen the penguins out as much as normal, which I think might be due to them not having people around. It really is a way for them to have fun and really kind of interact with others. I went to go visit the sea otters the other day, and they were very excited to see another face. But don't worry, they're all getting wonderful care, and our animal care staff is making sure that they are getting lots of games and treats and lots of time to play. Penguins are fairly active during the day, that's right, Max, so they don't tend to be very nocturnal. Oh, funny question, Charlotte and Isaiah. Do I like the penguins of Madagascar? Those are definitely some adventurous penguins for that movie. I think they're very funny. But one thing that I think is maybe not accurate, but they get sort of right, is penguins, which are birds, are actually very, very smart. And in the Madagascar movies, those penguins are always showing everyone just how smart and creative they are. Now, I have a very silly photo here. Kind of like maybe in some movies you've seen birds that look a little bit silly. They can actually molt their feathers. So just like we kind of lose our hair every once in a while, just as we go through our day, they can actually lose their feathers when they are transitioning from a baby to an adult. So they can actually lose those extra fluffy feathers and grow those adult ones. So you can see some of those fluffy baby feathers still hanging around. Many, many baby animals are extra fluffy with feathers or fur to keep them extra warm and protected. And this is a really cool picture of those really warm down feathers that they have. Oh, good question, Katie. Do we collect feathers? I'm not actually sure. That's a great question for us to ask our penguin trainers. I'm not entirely sure. But they do have thousands and thousands of feathers on their bodies, and some penguins can have up to 4 different types of feathers. These are some of the really, really warm down feathers that act like a big warm jacket to keep them super, super warm. And their feathers can actually be waterproof in a way. And they have all those little kind of interlocking feathery parts, or kind of the edges that come off. And I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment. If you take your hand with all your fingers, is that going to keep you very warm? Say this is you. You're trying to wrap your blanket around you, but it's all holey. It's not going to help you stay very warm. But those feathers have little hooks that help them stick together and create a nice, warm, thick blanket that keeps them together. So you can try that. You can have your feathers apart, then you've got to make sure they stick together and keep you nice and warm. Great questions. How do you tell a male from a female? You know, I'm not entirely sure for every species. Sometimes the males can be larger than the females, but at least and sometimes the patterns can change a little bit on birds from male to female, but they don't have obvious parts on the outside of their body that tells us if it's a boy or a girl. They actually have something kind of silly called a cloaca. It's a weird word, but that is where all of their pee and poo comes out of. And if they were to lay an egg, it will also come out of that cloaca. So all of them will have the same sort of outer parts that we might use to see if a human is male or female. Awesome. Oh, good question. Do I help with the penguins here at the Vancouver Aquarium? I don't. I wish. They are so wonderful. But I get to help out with some of our invertebrates. Just like the sea stars that you might enjoy, like Max does. So those are animals that do not have a backbone. Can you find your backbone or your spine? If you take a hand, you might be able to feel some bumps on the back of your neck. Those are part of your spine. Penguins, they also have a spine, but a sea star, they do not. So we call them an invertebrate, meaning no spine or no backbone, whereas whereas we are a vertebrate. We have a spine. Amazing. Now I'm going to come back to our presentation and I'll finish up so we can ask lots of questions. There's that wonderful feather again. And I have another video for you from here at the Vancouver Aquarium. There are those penguins. You can see them using those flippers to swim themselves around, and they use those feet to sort of steer themselves in the water, kind of like the rudder on a boat or a steering wheel in a car. So they will kind of float around and swim. They're just kind of hanging out and chilling. They're pretty cute. Hello. And they're very interested in what you're doing. So I think that is one thing they're missing about not having humans around, is they like to check out what you're up to. They're very curious animals. Are you curious? Do you like to explore new things? All right, I'm gonna stop sharing real quick. I have one last thing that I want us to talk about, and then I'll answer as many questions as you can come up with. Oh, good question. So Charlotte and Isaiah were saying, so they stand up straight, but their back bends when they swim? Great observations. So we notice when they're standing, their head is up nice and tall, but when they're swimming, their back's down and they curl their head up. So they do have a flexible neck with all those vertebrae in their back and their neck, allowing it to move. Now, big question for you. Do penguins sleep? What do you think? Do all animals sleep? Sort of. Do penguins and birds sleep? Yeah, they do. Penguins, they do sleep, but if you were a penguin, say an emperor penguin living in the harsh, cold winters of Antarctica, would you want to lay down on the ice to sleep? It might get too chilly. So penguins actually stand up while sleeping. Do you think you could stand up while sleeping? I think I'd just fall right over. So that way, if they're just on their feet, they don't lose as much body heat. They stay super, super warm, all huddled together. Yeah, kind of like a horse. That's right. Yeah, we might need a pillow. That's right. Awesome. Now, the last thing I want to mention is, are there any ways that we can help penguins or other animals? Can anyone think of a way that we could help? Right now, we're losing a lot of ice around the planet. And as our planet gets a bit warmer through our changing climate, that is causing trouble for the food of penguins. And a lot of the time, there's less food for them to find. But we have some great ways that we can help from everyone. Not throw trash in the water. Yeah, you want those penguins to find that fish or that squid, not that old water bottle or that straw. Gross. And we can bike places. I know lots of people, while under quarantine in this COVID-19 life, have been biking around. Great way to save fuel and not contribute to the gases in our atmosphere. Walking as well, great idea. Yeah, trying to avoid using a car, because as we burn the oil in our car, it creates a big blanket over the planet that warms it. Use less electricity. Yeah, depending on where your electricity is coming from, definitely, or creating less demand for more hydroelectric dams. Oh, good question, AJ and Charlie. What is my favorite animal? That's a hard one, but I do really love sea cucumbers. They're kind of an animal that's forgotten about, or people say, hey, that's cool, but they're super important to their ecosystem because they clean up after everyone else. If we didn't have the sea cucumbers, it'd be a big old mess down there in the ocean. Great question. Oh, it sounds like Max's favorite animal is sharks. Sharks are amazing too. Unfortunately for sharks and penguins, they actually get largely affected by fishing that humans do. So, unfortunately, we like to collect animals from the ocean with nets, and those nets collect everything around them. They could accidentally catch sharks. That's not good for the sharks. And it can also mean that we take the food of those penguins. If there's not enough fish or squid left for them in the ocean, it's hard to find enough food to survive. If you ever see our OceanWise symbol, this is our OceanWise symbol, and if you see that in a restaurant or on the seafood section of your grocery store, we've done the homework for you, and this seal of approval says that's a more sustainable or smart choice for our oceans and therefore for our penguins. Yeah, you can see that on some cans of tuna as well. That's great.
And there was it's at the top from Charlotte and Isaiah. Do sunscreens that we use affect sea animals? That's a really great question.
That is a great question. Yes, our sunscreens can harm ocean animals. There's a lot of like oxybenzones and things that these chemicals in the sunscreens that we can use. You can try and use a zinc-based sunscreen instead, or there's a few other alternatives that those chemicals can, the oxybenzones can affect corals a lot, and that actually destroys entire ecosystems. But even bigger than those sunscreens is climate change, because climate change is affecting all life on our entire planet. So just like we talked about some alternatives to driving, or maybe if you see litter near water, pick it up so it doesn't get in there. Oh, good question. What about with hairspray? So with some chemicals and things that you spray, there can be some things in there that can cause issues with our atmosphere as well. A lot of brands have sort of tried to switch away from things like that. But if you are wondering if yours is or isn't and you can't tell, there are other options out there for your hair. Trust me, so many options. Good question though. There can be some that are harmful.
Maybe we can, you talked about the OceanWise seal. Sometimes when you're shopping, boys and girls, you can look for products that are bio-friendly, which means that they don't have all the chemicals in them with sunscreen. I remember being at the Vancouver Aquarium. You can buy proper sunscreen at places that are okay for your for the water. So look on when you're looking for something, look, I'm just looking for something that we can use as an example, but just look at the labels and have, you know, if you're shopping with mom and dad, um, you can look for the labels to see if they're eco-friendly, and we that's a good sign that it's not bad for the environment. Oh, Charlotte and Isaiah say why don't penguins fly?
That's a great question. And a lot of that is if you look at a penguin, their body is much, much larger than their wings. So instead of having a lot of energy to all those beautiful feathers for flying and a very light skeleton, they actually have a stiffer skeleton and less of those big feathers for flying so that they are good at swimming underwater. Some penguins can dive quite deep, and that can be a lot of pressure from all that water. And those big, beautiful, long feathers might not work so well swimming.
And maybe the last question, how long is a typical penguin lifespan?
Great question. It really ranges. So we have penguins that are as large as the emperor penguin, which is around 1.5 meters tall. So that's almost as tall as me, a little bit shorter, maybe as tall as you. And we have some that are as small as a foot tall, so about 33 centimeters. So that's a little bit bigger than my head. And that means their lifespan also ranges a lot, anywhere from like 6-ish years to around 30 years.
Wow, that's a long time for a penguin. That's awesome. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Daphne, for joining us and being a new presenter to Connected North at Home. We hope we get a chance to meet you again and have another program. And I just wanted to do a little book shout out to the boys and girls at home. When I was your age, my one of my favorite books to read with my mom, and then when I was a teacher, one of my favorite books to read to a class was an old book called Mr. Popper's Penguins. And it's a nonfiction, but it has a lot of facts about penguins if you're curious. But it's a great book to read um, um, at home. You could probably get it at the library online or somewhere. It's an older book. It was written in 1938, so it's really old. So it would be 72 years old. But it's a really funny book, and I think if you love penguins, you will love this book for sure. And thanks, Daphne. You did a great job. We had no idea that penguins lived in so many variety of places in the desert even. That's awesome. And Robert said it's his penguins are his favorite animal.
Amazing. I'm glad that we could